Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my Severance Season 2 review. Let's get into it. So before I get into my Season 2 thoughts, I quickly just wanted to say this about Season 1. I think that Season 1 is maybe the greatest season of television ever. I think Season 1 is essentially perfect, and it really competes for top spot in my mind because basically since I was like, I don't know, 16 or something, I have said that Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original animated series, is my number one favorite show. 9.9 out of 10, like 9.8 out of 10. Like, it's my favorite show. Um, but Severance Season 1 is like right in there. It's 9.8. Like, it's, you know how sometimes you go back and forth on things. Um, those are like my top two. I don't know what my third pick would be, but anyway, I thought Season 1 was incredible, and so obviously Season 2 had big shoes to fill. I think many of us felt that way. So I'm going to talk about the things that I liked and some of the things that I didn't like. So things that I liked, the acting was superb. It was incredible, and a lot of people are saying Adam Scott should get an Emmy for Season 2. Sure, that would be I would fully agree with that. But I also fully agree that any of these people, any of the cast members, could uh, deservedly get an Emmy because Britt Lauer was great, Zach Cherry was great, John Turturro was phenomenal, Tremel Tillman is phenomenal, and I could Sarah Bach. Um, I could list everyone. I could list everyone in the cast because they were all so amazing. That's probably, in my opinion, I mean, it's hard to say, but that's probably, in my opinion, the greatest thing about both seasons is the acting. Obviously, the writing is also fantastic. Dan Erickson, apparently, if I'm understanding this right, I think Dan Erickson basically broke into the industry with Severance, which, like, wow, imagine that being your first project. One of the greatest TV shows ever. That's really something. And, as someone who's tried to write things over the years, um, that is like the ultimate, like, wow, the ultimate dream. The music, I'm actually forgetting their name. I think it's Shapiro. Is it Theodore Shapiro? Yeah. Um, this is a slight critique. I wish that this might seem like a weird critique. I wish that we had seen. I wish they had featured the music a little bit more because I'm just remembering there's a scene in Season 1. I think it was the finale episode of Season 1. When Cobell was driving up the driveway to the Lumen building and the theme is playing. That was like such a goosebumps moment. I wish there were more moments like that in Season 2. Or like when Helly, is doing her awesome epic walk, also in the finale episode of Season 1, and the music is playing. Like, that is another goosebumps moment. I wish there were more moments like that in Season 2. Very small nitpicky thing. Another thing that I liked was the cinematography. I'm going to put the name of the cinematographer right here because I don't want to mispronounce her last name. She also directed the Gemma episode. And wow. Wow, that's maybe my favorite episode of the season, actually. That was episode 7, right? The Gemma episode. Is that right? Yeah. That was probably my favorite episode. Yeah, probably my favorite episode of the season. And that was her directorial debut, apparently. Which, wow, that's amazing. That's really special. Good for her. There was some really special stuff in Season 2 again, to the Gemma episode, the stuff that they recorded with film, that has a really special quality to it. Actually, I would put it like this, and others have put it like this as well. Find the ugly frame, right? Find the ugly. It's like, good luck. It's just, it's hard to highlight many. I mean, I always enjoy seeing the transition from innie to outie or vice versa. That dolly zoom, I guess it's called, right? Is really, it's always cool to see, but especially at the end of episode 4, when, as far as we know, Irving's innie dies, essentially. Or, at least for now. I guess who knows what will happen in season 3. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about some things that I didn't like. And I want to give a disclaimer first about the way I look at criticism of things. This is just my opinion. Obviously, everything in this video is just my opinion. But when I criticize something, I'm not saying that I'm objectively getting at something. Like, this is just my opinion about the writing or whatever. And I think the point of it, in my opinion, is to hopefully start a discussion about something, and maybe beneficial things could come out of that discussion. So ultimately, it's supposed to be constructive feedback, or, useful, I guess, conversation generating statements. Like, that's kind of, to me, the point of critique. But there were some things that I didn't like. And let me just add this as well. I'm sure Dan Erickson will never watch this, but if he does happen to watch it, I idolize you. You're amazing. It's not supposed to be like that. I'm just saying, these are my opinions about some things that could have worked better. So let's talk about the reintegration thing. I almost think they could have cut the reintegration stuff entirely and reworked a few things, and the season would have basically worked. The reason I say that is because at the end of episode 3, we were like, oh shit, they're doing the Mark reintegration thing early in the season? This is nuts. And then by the end, 7 episodes later, by the end of season 2, Mark is apparently somewhat reintegrated. That's pretty weird. And, you can always say they're playing 4D chess. That's always a response to critique for this sort of a show. What about season 3 or 4? But there are certain things that, in my opinion, a story should do that are satisfying within that sort of package. And I think the way they did the reintegration stuff, basically, in the finale episode, we still have fully distinguishable innie and outie Mark. So, was the flooding the chip thing, did that do anything at all? Ragabi acted like that was going to speed up the process, and it seems like it basically didn't do anything except for incapacitate Mark, so we could have 2 episodes that weren't to do with Mark or something. And I guess the counter argument would be, but the reintegration point was sort of what innie and outie Mark were arguing about in the finale episode, so reintegration is an important element of it. Sure. But they could have done it differently. We thought initially, when we didn't know what the rest of the season was going to look like, we thought that he was already fully reintegrated by the end of episode 3. And then we realize reintegration is a process. I mean, in the finale episode, there weren't even hallucinations. That could have been an interesting mechanic. If they introduced the mechanic, they should use it. It's weird that the the severance barrier is breaking. I'm having hallucinations. That should have at least been a mechanic in the finale if you're going to introduce that as a mechanic. Okay, this is probably my most controversial statement. I thought, and I'm like I said, when I'm critiquing something, I'm not trying to be rude. I didn't think episode 4 was great. Again, I'm going to put asterisks everywhere. Like, this is just my opinion, okay? Dan Erickson is brilliant, and Ben Stiller. I thought 60 to 70% of episode 4 was boring, essentially. And yes, the last 15 minutes made up for it. But, Mark, where are you? Irving! Like, that was, I was like, I can't believe they're dedicating this much screen time to this. Like, we're walking around in the snow. The twin thing didn't even matter for the plot at large. Episode 4 had moments that were great. Like when Helena was like, Irving. Like, that was Britt Lauer being amazing. And the acting is, always great. There's like a moment of, wow, that's amazing. There's a moment of, wow, that's amazing. Oh my God, it is Helena. Or it was Helena this whole time in season 2. But over, like I said, 60 to 70% of episode 4 I thought was not interesting. We know that Dan Erickson wanted to do an outdoor episode. And you can kind of tell, in my opinion, that they were thinking, how are we going to do that? Like, the nugget of the idea is I want an outdoor episode. And then we invent the plot after. Like, to me, that is sort of cart before the horse, a little bit. I know a lot of people said that the Cobell episode was not that interesting. What I would say instead of that is I wish they had just done more with the Cobell episode. Because, again, the actors, Patricia Arquette is amazing, and Cobell is a very interesting character. So my only critique of the Cobell episode is I wish they had done more with it. I wanted to see more of Cobell. I wanted to learn more about Cobell. So basically, yes, there were slow aspects to it. I'm mostly okay with that if they can keep it interesting, and I don't want to critique something just because it was slow. Severance takes its time. Anyway, so my only critique of the Cobell episode is I wish they'd given us more of Cobell. There's this phrase in theater and film that you can suspend your disbelief. In other words, I can buy into your internal logic for the universe that you're creating to some extent, but I can't suspend my disbelief, like, no matter what. And there's some things that I don't buy. In other words, I don't buy Devin trusting Cobell at all. That was, to me, super weird, and it really took me out of the season, actually, because what Devin in my head would be saying is, I get it, she's super desperate. She's trying to save her brother's life. She's super desperate. But what I think Devin would say is, imagine someone saying to her, maybe we should call Cobell. Devin would be like, fuck that noise. Are you crazy? That's what Devin would say. So I don't buy that Devin trusted Cobell to any extent at all. Mark very reasonably distrusted Helena / Helly after the Ortbo in episode 4. That made a lot of logical sense. In episode 5, he was like, I guess I don't really know you. I don't know who you are anymore. That was really interesting and made a lot of logical sense. And then they just kind of stopped doing that. Basically, episode 5 was the only time that Mark was like, "Are you Helena again?" Like, that should have continued on basically for the rest of the season. But he sort of, on a dime, in episode, like, I guess episode 6 was just like, okay, you're Helly. So he should have continued to distrust whether or not, or he should have continued to doubt whether it was Helly or not. So those are the things where I can't suspend my disbelief. We still have a lot of unanswered questions. That's fine. But to me, again, my opinion, there are a frustrating number of unanswered questions still. Who or what is the board? Who was Irving talking to on the payphone? How did Ragabi find Mark in episode 3? Like, he parked under the bridge, basically, or near the bridge in some remote location, and Ragabi was just there. Again, you can always respond with they're playing 4D chess. So maybe these are things that will be answered later. But to me, right now, they come across like, I don't want to say plot holes, but going back to the suspending your disbelief thing, basically, Ragabi just showing up out of nowhere is a great example in episode 3. When she looked in the windshield and Mark was like, Jesus Christ, like, was she like following him, or like, how did she know he was there? It looks like he was just at some random remote location. I still feel like I don't really know what reintegration is, because I thought that reintegration was breaking down the severance barrier. But like I said earlier, Mark still isn't reintegrated, even after the flooding the chip plot point, which kind of was a nothing burger. So, was Cold Harbor completed or not? Like, it seemed like they got enough information to sort of complete Cold Harbor, because Gemma's greatest trauma is losing her child / struggling for years to, for Mark and Gemma to conceive. And the doctor said the severance barrier is holding, and she was taking the crib apart. So I guess Cold Harbor was completed, but then why were they panicking because they had to kill her? Were they panicking because, I mean, did they think that she was gonna get out? Like, that's another thing, is where's the security? Like, okay, Drummond is really strong, but he's not omnipresent, so where are the other security people on the most important floor of the most important, like, these are the suspending your disbelief things that are really a stretch, in my opinion. I also hope season 3 isn't just breaking Mark out of Lumen. I really hope they don't do that, because I don't think there's enough material. Let's just say each episode is an hour. Do you really think we could spend 10 hours on getting Mark out of Lumen? Maybe I'll eat those words. Maybe that's a challenge, right? And Dan Erickson, who definitely will never watch this, will say, challenge accepted. I will make that interesting. And I didn't mean it like it's impossible. I just meant, to me, that's not that interesting unless they can really, and maybe they will blow my mind again. So basically, what is my overall feeling of season 2? There's undeniably so much talent behind this project. And these people are remarkable people and very talented. But as a super fan, maybe I sort of had my expectations. And, we're spoiled nowadays with how much content there is. Maybe I set my expectations. Sometimes you're disappointed when it isn't like how you pictured. And we had a long time to picture what season 2 would be like. We had years to do that. So, anyway, there are a lot of things I liked. Many things I liked about season 2. Many things. But there were also a fair number of things that were kind of disappointing to some degree. So anyway, that is my review of Severance season 2. I have mixed feelings. That's my one sentence review is I have mixed feelings about season 2. But the good parts are great. This is why it's so difficult. The great parts are great. Really great. And the disappointing parts are actually quite disappointing, in my opinion. So anyway, I want to end on a positive note. Everyone who worked on this is amazing. So anyway, that's all I got. Thank you for watching.